Hello and welcome to a tutorial on how to create a colorful bubble effect in Photoshop CS5. So we're going to start today with a large canvas of around 1920 and 1200 pixels in height. We're going to select our elliptical marquee tool in Photoshop. And we're also going to create a new layer. We're just going to make a selection of a circle. It doesn't matter for now about the size of it. So our intention here is now to create a brush. So we're going to use the color black. I'm just going to fill the circle up there. Now, while keeping the circle selected, we're going to insert a layer style. First of all, we'll go to blending options, and we're going to change the fill opacity to around 50%, just so it looks like a more dullish grey color. We're also going to add a stroke with the color of black, and we're also going to change the position to inside and the size to about 10 pixels. Now we're going to click on the edit menu and hit define brush preset, and now we're just going to name our brush pattern 1 and save it there. Now you can deselect the circle. Now we've created our brush in Photoshop. So we're going to go to Windows, Brush, or you can also bring up this menu by hitting F5, and it'll just bring up the brushes menu on our sidebar. Now we're going to select the brush that we created, and you'll probably most likely find it by scrolling down to the bottom. It doesn't matter what size the brush is for now, you can leave it at the default size. We're just going to change a few settings just so for the background, so the bubbles will scatter around randomly. We're going to change the spacing. This is probably the most important thing we have to do, just so the circle doesn't appear as one massive blob. So we'll change the spacing to 100%. Now we're going to click on Shape Dynamics. Now we're going to change the controls, make sure that's pen pressure. We're also going to change the minimum diameter to 50%. We're going to go to Scattering menu. We're going to change our scatter to both axes and change it to 1000%. And this just enables sort of randomness or scattering of the bubbles when we use this brush for later. We're just going to change the count jitter to 1%, change the count to 5. So now we're going to go into our transfer menu. And we're just going to change the opacity jitter. We're going to change that to 50%, just so our circles don't appear as one big blob of color. We're just going to change our flow jitter to 50% and change the control to pen pressure. That should be all for our brushes at the moment. So for now, we're going to create a new layer. Let's call this one layer 2. we're just gonna place this, make sure this lays at the top above the circle. Then we're gonna insert a gradient to the background. Now here's where the color pattern comes in. So basically now this gradient will be used to create our own colorful effect in the background. So you can really use a mixture of any colors you want. So now I'm going to use a mixture of just a few, 4 of the base colors. Once we've gradient, we're just going to delete our circle layer. And we're just going to create a new layer, place it below the gradient layer, and we're just going to place a grayish black color within the backgrounds. Now we're just going to change layer 2, or the gradient layer, to overlay as its blending option. Now this just gives the background a sort of fluorescent look and doesn't make it too bright as well. Now we're just going to create a new folder by clicking the folder icon at the bottom of the toolbar, and we're just going to change the blending option to color dodge for it. Going back to our gradient layer now, we're going to start creating our circles. So set a new layer, and we're just going to grab our original brush, change the color to white, select our brush, we're just going to turn up the size, make sure it's at about 400 to 500 pixels, start out large. I'm just going to start inserting the circles into the background, like you see here. Now you can't really control exactly where the circles are going to go because they're scattering randomly. Just try to get a few in the background. Now after this, change the new layer that has your circles in it to the overlay blending mode. Now we're just going to go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and we're just going to blur it out, giving it a radius of about anywhere from 10 to 20 pixels for our larger layer. Now the idea here is to keep implanting circles into the background at smaller sizes, and each time you put in new blur, you just change the radius size to a smaller number. This can be done all in the same layer, but it is recommended that you do it on a different layer for each, just so the blurs don't overlap each other. So doing that. As you can see here, we've got our circles done, so we put them into the background.